The development of linear perspective in the 1400s carried significance beyond its use as an artistic technique. It transformed how people perceived and understood their world. This new way of seeing emphasized individual viewpoints and encouraged people to consider not just what they observed, but how they interpreted it. After 1500, people began to question traditional authorities rather than simply accepting explanations from the church or other religious doctrines. This period saw Martin Luther challenge Catholic Church authority through the Protestant Reformation. A broad spirit of inquiry emerged, extended beyond religion and into science, astronomy, business, and politics. This intellectual awakening was greatly facilitated by Gutenberg's invention of movable type printing, which made texts and ideas widely accessible. The scientific revolution was grounded in reason and empirical observation. Copernicus exemplified this new thinking when he proposed that the Earth revolves around the Sun, challenging the long-held belief that Earth was the center of the universe. The widespread influence of printing press alongside scientific revolution and age of discovery shaped the spirit of the time that gave rise to the Baroque. Baroque art was a style prominent in the 17th century Europe, characterized by dramatic, often exaggerated and dynamic compositions. The style emphasized movement, emotion, and sensory appeal that caused a powerful reaction from viewers. Baroque derives from a Portuguese word meaning irregular pearl, reflected in the style's distinctive unevenness and extravagance. Art critics initially used the word Baroque to describe anything irregular, bizarre, and something that deviated from established Renaissance rules. The term carried negative implications of oddity, grotesqueness, and excessive ornament until the art historian Heinrich Wulffen wrote in 1888 a book that established the Baroque as a significant art style. Caravaggio is one of the key artists of this period who used a technique called chiaroscuro in his paintings. This technique creates a very dark background while the figures appear dramatically illuminated. Chiaroscuro, the word, is from the Italian chiaro, which means clear, and oscuro, obscure, and represents an extreme transition from light to dark. It's similar to theatrical lighting, where highlighted areas draw focus while darker areas recede into the background. The dramatic positioning of figures and compositions enhanced this theatrical quality, particularly evident in this painting, Judith beheading Holofernes. The biblical scene depicts Judith's intense expression as she decapitates Holofernes. Artemisia Gentileschi is the only female artist I will discuss in this lecture. Notice the expression of Judith's face. She's putting real effort into her task, deliberately ensuring a clean cut through his neck. This represents a different approach and attitude. Artemisia stands out as one of the few critically acclaimed women artists of her time, and for good reason. Remarkably, 94% of her work, about 50 paintings, feature courageous, rebellious, powerful women as protagonists. This contrasts sharply with male artists of the period who typically portrayed women as subtle, dainty, soft figures, usually nude. We'll explore this gender disparity further when we discuss the 20th century, but for now, let's examine the historical imbalance between men and women in art. Bernini emphasizes drama in this rape scene. It can't be ignored how this connects to current discussions of rape culture, the way society sometimes dismisses or even accepts such violence. While this is technically a fantastic sculpture, the violent details are striking. His hands are digging into her flesh, and the ripples of her leg are captured in stone. It's particularly interesting to compare this to Artemisia's work, where she depicts a man being killed. This does bring up the question of art historical representation and exploitation. We will return to this topic. In the Flemish Baroque, we find artists like Peter Paul Rubens from Antwerp, who created dynamic compositions that focused on human form with a sense of sensuality and drama fitting for the Baroque. We had previously explored perspective in its relationship to point of view, like that of Jan van Eyck with the fish-eyed mirror painting. The Baroque in Northern Europe displayed a different kind of drama than what we encountered with Caravaggio and Artemisia Gentileschi. This drama manifests in Memento Mori and Vanitas paintings. Vanitas, or Memento Mori, reminds us that death comes to everyone, even wealthy patrons commissioning grand portraits. Thus, beneath these monumental sculptures and paintings lies an ever-present reminder of mortality. The theme appears frequently in many of the Northern European paintings, especially in the still lifes of fruit and vegetables and flowers. These paintings often feature flowers that could never bloom together in nature, as they flowered in different seasons or came from different climates, unlike today's year-round availability through modern shipping and refrigeration. This brings us back to Hans Holbein. Holbein was a German artist of the Northern Renaissance who preceded Caravaggio and Artemisia Gentileschi at the height of the Baroque. The Northern European perspective or point of view differed from that found in Italy and influenced by the politics of the Protestant Reformation and Counter-Reformation. Holbein was known for working in England and painted Anne of Cleves, who became one of Henry VIII's wives after the king saw her portrait. In 1539, she arrived in England and married Henry a week later, though they divorced just after 6 months, followed by an annulment. Legend has it that this was because she wasn't as beautiful in person as in the painting. The Ambassador's painting is particularly fascinating due to its placement hung beneath a doorway where viewers would look up as they pass under it. At the bottom of the painting lies an intriguing smudge that transforms when viewed from different angles. Using a technique called anamorphic perspective, similar to modern street art illusions on Instagram, where flat drawings become deep hits or objects when viewed from the right spot. The image appears distorted until seen from a specific position. As viewers walked under the doorway, the mysterious smudge reveals its true form. It is a clever optical illusion, and more techniques like this will be discussed shortly. Jan van Meer is fascinating because of his mastery of light and atmosphere, particularly in his use of the camera obscura. So what exactly is this device, camera obscura? It's essentially a system of lenses that, in a darkened room, projects an image of the outside world into a dark box, an early predecessor of the modern camera. The process is quite simple. Rays of light enter the darkened chamber through a convex lens on the front of the box when pointed at the outside scene. This projects an inverted and reversed image onto the viewing window at the back of the camera. The resulting image shows unique optical effects, including diffused or soft highlights. A brief side note, there's a film called Girl with a Pearl Earring from 2003 that features Scarlett Johansson as the maid who modeled for Vermeer. It's not on our film list, but one I would highly recommend if you have a chance to take a look. As seen in the subject matter of Vermeer, this connects to something transformative that happened in art during the Renaissance with Jan van Eyck's invention of oil painting on canvas. Art wasn't just about looking at the outside world anymore. Artists began creating self-portraits, seeing and reflecting themselves as individual people. Rembrandt exemplifies this fantastically as he created self-portraits throughout his entire career. Let me show a bunch of them to you very quickly. Rembrandt at 22, at 24, 29 years old, 34, 55, and 63 years old. And then there was what he's probably most famous for, The Night Watch, which demonstrates the relationship between the Baroque drama and perspective in what essentially is a very large portrait. A fascinating technique called trompe-l'oeil was used to trick the viewer's eye, challenging the viewer to question when is something a painting and when is it real. While the Baroque period was already quite ornamental, Rococo painting took illusion further with their extreme perspectives looking up with no horizon line. But they didn't just create flat paintings that appeared dimensional. When you look closely at these works, you'll find painted figures on walls where their legs are, well, actually sculptures. It becomes almost impossible to tell what's painting and what's three-dimensional. This playful deception between two-dimensional and three-dimensional elements was a key feature of this Rococo style. Moving forward to the neoclassical period, we see another significant development. Remember how, since the cognitive revolution, story was a major part of how one communicates through art. This is where painting begins having another profound impact. Neoclassicism focused on documenting historical events and important battles through art, and it opened new possibilities for what this medium could do. Take the death of Miro, for example. Miro was a journalist who criticized the monarchy and was killed for it. That's the abbreviated version of the story, but it clearly shows that art begins to have a function beyond just looking at pretty pictures. While the Grand Odalisque in this neoclassical painting by Ingres is the topic of our next lecture, I'd like to pause and reflect on how we perceive our surroundings in 2025. In the past, images were contextualized with vanitas or memento mori, or they were even altered with anamorphic perspective, camera obscura, and trompe l'oeil. What's your opinion, your perspective on objects in your world today, and how images of those objects might be altered, even enhanced, or posed, or photoshopped, or completely done with AI? I'm interested to know how you view the transformation and manipulation of things around you.